Today, the whole world said goodbye to Her Majesty the Queen. King Charles was seen wiping away tears throughout the ceremony, especially when walking behind the coffin and entering the abbey. Prince Harry also couldn't cope with his grief and looked completely devastated. The Queen's youngest son, Edward, struggled to hold back tears when his wife took out a napkin and handed it to him. Prince William and his family tried to remain calm and reserved, with Prince George and Princess Charlotte in attendance. It was a very emotional and moving ceremony. Many members of the royal family paid tribute to Her Majesty, including Kate, Meghan, and even 7-year-old Princess Charlotte. Kate wore a very special pearl necklace, once treasured by the Queen, and pearl earrings as a symbol of grief in the royal family. Meghan also wore pearl and diamond earrings given to her by Queen Elizabeth II herself. Little Charlotte wore a hat with a bow for the first time as a touching and grown-up gesture to the Queen. And on her dress was a little horseshoe-shaped diamond brooch, a tribute to her great-grandmother's love of horses. But the most heartfelt gesture was by the Queen's eldest son, Charles. He wrote a note, which was later placed on the Queen's coffin. The note read, "In loving and devoted memory." By the way, the stunning wreath which adorned the royal's coffin included flowers specifically requested by His Majesty. The flowers were cut from the gardens of Buckingham Palace, Clarence House and Highgrove House, and they carry a special meaning. English oak symbolizes the strength of love, rosemary marking remembrance, and myrtle, the ancient symbol of a happy marriage. It was also in the Queen's wedding bouquet. Members of the royal family followed the procession on foot. The King, Prince William, Princess Anne and Prince Edward were all wearing military uniform. Prince Andrew and Prince Harry wore suits, as they are no longer working royals. Meghan Markle and Kate Middleton didn't walk with them, as traditionally only men of the royal family are allowed. However, an exception was made for the Queen's daughter Anne. Although the funeral was a time of shared mourning, there was still some tension between members of the royal family. There was a huge distance between Meghan and everyone else. Meghan was quite far from the rest of the royals. Harry and Meghan also didn't join William and Kate in the front row in the abbey. They were seated at the end of the second row, with Princess Beatrice and her husband. But since they're not working royals anymore, this all is rather understandable. The youngest royals were also present at the ceremony. Princess Charlotte wore a black outfit, while her older brother George wore a smart navy suit. Some might wonder why he didn't wear traditional black, and that's because in royal funeral etiquette, navy is also considered a sign of respect for the deceased. The funeral was full of symbolism. First of all, it took place at Westminster Abbey. This is a historic church with a lot of significance. Many of Britain's kings and queens were crowned here, including Queen Elizabeth II herself, way back in 1953. It is also the place where she married Prince Philip in 1947. The Queen's funeral procession moved from Westminster Hall to Westminster Abbey. The carriage was pulled by a horse with no rider. The riderless horse is also known as a lone charger, and it symbolizes a fallen soldier. Queen Elizabeth was the first female member of the royal family to serve in the military and held over 50 ranks and appointments. During the procession, the tenor bell at Westminster Abbey tolled 96 times, one toll symbolizing each year of the Queen's life. The music for the funeral was also chosen as a symbol. Much of the music at today's state funeral was selected for its special significance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and many of the choices also have a long association with Westminster Abbey. Many world and Commonwealth leaders joined the royal family to also say a last goodbye to Her Majesty the Queen, including Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, and Elena Zelenska, and also royalty of other countries like Sweden, Norway, Spain, and others. It was a very emotional time for everyone. People looked deeply sad and solemn, having shared the moment of sorrow with the nation. The royal family then returned for a private burial. Elizabeth is laid to rest in the King George VI Memorial Chapel, next to her strength and stay Prince Philip. The Queen's father, mother, and sister's ashes are also interred there. But before the Queen got to her final place of rest, she took her last journey through her land. Elizabeth passed away at her summer residence in Scotland, and her body stayed there for 5 days. Thousands of people came to pay their respects.
It's an emotional day now here for us in the village. It's our chance to say goodbye.
So it's almost like a family member.
Kilted soldiers carried her coffin into St. Giles Cathedral. There, they placed the crown of Scotland on her coffin, symbolizing the distinctive character of Scotland's historic nationhood, which meant a lot for the people.
It was quite emotional. I took a big breath before I went in, and then I did a little bow by her coffin, and to see that it was a Scottish crown on the top was lovely to see.
Her Majesty loved the people of Scotland no less than they loved her.
The Queen, like so many generations of our family before her, found in the hills of this land and in the hearts of its people a haven and a home.
All 4 the Queen's children took part in the Vigil of Princess. They all positioned themselves at each side of the coffin and symbolically stood guard for around 10 minutes. Princess Anne became the first royal woman in history to take part in this ceremonial vigil. And after the people of Scotland said their final farewell, the coffin was transported to Buckingham Palace. It was accompanied by Anne, who said it was an honor and a privilege to do so. Following the Queen's death, countries all around the world paid her a heartfelt tribute. The Sydney Opera House projected a picture of Elizabeth, Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, and the Empire State Building in New York lit up in the colors of the British flag to honor the Queen. And the Eiffel Tower in Paris turned off its lights to symbolize the deep mourning of the people. World leaders expressed their condolences as well.
She was one of my favorite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
The thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
Many of them also signed a book of condolence in person, even including the President of Ukraine, who said that the Queen will forever remain in the history of mankind. And he thanked her for her selfless service to her people. More than 50,000 people also signed the book online. Now thousands of people came to London to say goodbye. People laid countless flowers and photos of the Queen. And some even brought balloons and Paddington teddy bears. Queen Elizabeth was more than just a monarch. She was a mother, grandmother, and even a great-grandmother, not only to her family, but to her realm. She was the one constant in an inconstant world, and she will be forever missed. Rest in peace, Your Majesty.